Hi, so welcome to the second part of this lecture. Here I'm going to show you in practice how we can use um, all kinds of different layers, very simple rendered layers, something which is very easy to set up, such as the image over here, in which we don't spend a lot of attention to, for example, surface color or specularity and other things, and how we can actually create everything from that later on, so that we don't have to waste our time re-rendering global illumination, all kinds of other maps, tweaking the surface, the color of the bottle, etc., and so that we have like very precise control over the things that we want to control. So let me go on over here. By the way, this is a technique that we've used quite extensively at PlayLogic back the time I was working over there, especially for the project Cyanide, in which we had to render like very complex backgrounds. And so again, that we completely relied on using exactly this kind of techniques to make like a very efficient workflow. Now the reason why we're using this technique as well, or the reason why I'm showing you this technique is because it's very closely related to what you use in modern day uh, render engines, such for example the render engine of Killzone from Gorilla, which is a deferred renderer. And basically what that renderer is doing is, instead of rendering just like one finalized image, it's rendering several passes, several image passes, and then combines those image passes um, in similar techniques to what we're going to see right now. So this is going to help you understand and figure out how to build things yourself that way. Alright, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna open Nuke, and let me just remove these two so that I can show you where you get them from. So first, a few things perhaps about the Nuke setup or layout is personally I prefer to have like one properties tab and one properties tab for a node. So each time I click a node, I see only the properties of that node, because I find it otherwise confusing if you have like multiple of those tabs. Now you can change the amount of properties over here with this value, and by the way, you can also adjust that by um, setting in your preferences the control panels. So you can set the maximum nodes in the properties bin, for example, to 1. And like that, it's always limited to number 1. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna read in the files, and by pressing R, we can just open these files. You find them over here in layers, and the things that we're gonna start with are the surface IDs. So switch off sequences because we have two of them, and the reason why we have two of them is that one was created manually and another one I created automatically by the system itself. The thing is, the one that I created manually is easier to use because it has like perfect colors which are easy to extract from each other. This one doesn't have that. This is something you will see you have to make some small adjustments to. But I'm gonna show you some techniques you can use over there as well. So the two techniques we're going to see are making a selection using the shuffle and making a selection using the U keyer. So let's go over here, and by adding a shuffle we will need probably more than one shuffle, so I'm going to copy and paste this one so that we can have like multiple shuffles right over here. Now with this shuffle node, the thing that you can do is that you can really select a channel. For example, what we're gonna do over here is the red channel. We're gonna select the red channels 1, 2, 3, and so the red channel is going to be copied then to red, green and blue. So if we're gonna check right over here, we see like all the objects which have like a pure red channel over here. So we can see, because of the purple, we have like the purple box, and we have over here the red background, and we have also the yellow sphere. All of them, they have like pure red. So if we see them, we can see those appearing. Let's do that for another one, for the green one as well. So now we see all green objects, and if we're gonna do it over here as well, we can show all blue objects. So the thing that I want to extract right now is I want to have like purely and alone this bottle. So if we see over here, we have like a negative of the bottle, we have over here positive of the bottle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert this image. So if I invert it, I get like a positive bottle. So from this one we're getting now to this. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to combine both of these images, and I'm going to take the minimum value of it. So by pressing tab, I'm going to merge, and we're going to merge using the minimum. And so like that we have like a proper and nice looking mask. Now you might see some differences. For example, if we go over here and over here, we see like this mask is getting bigger and getting smaller a bit. Now what's the reason for that? Well, there's one main important reason, is because right now we're in a different color space. We are in sRGB. So this is not a linear color space, but it's like a color space which is curved a little bit. So that's something we're gonna change. We're gonna make it both to RGB. And so if we check now, gonna see that we don't have that difference anymore. So the borders are not jumping around anymore right now. So keep that in mind. It's really important to always set this to none, and to have for the import images color space set to linear. So now that we've done that, now we have like a proper and clean mask. We see everything has values of 1 and values of 0. Now another method that you can use, and that's especially useful if you have like more complex kind of images. So right now we have like these easy colors to use, and you can go up to 6 color combinations before you're left out with all possible combinations. And that's the following, by using a U keyer. U keyer. And so what the U keyer is doing, it is going to select a color or a range of colors, which you can control over here with a curve, and that range of colors are then going to be converted into an alpha, which you can see over here. So you can change the output to alpha, you can change it to red, you can change it to all kinds of things. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep it at alpha, and we're gonna again use a shuffle to change the alpha into RGB. So right now we see our U keyer is creating like this nice RGB. And so why is that? Now the thing that we see over here is we get like this nice masking because we have the green, and the object over here that we see is green. So what we want to have is, let's say, the yellow sphere that we find over here. So what I'm going to select right here is I'm going to set the value to 1 so we can see the sphere, and I'm going to set the other values back to 0 again. Now make sure that you have like the proper value, which is this one over here. Now as you can see, it might create like a proper key, but it still leaves us with some kind of a small problem, which is over here a small edge, a small line, which is really annoying and somewhat hard to get rid of. And The reason of that is because with like this interpolation there's still a little bit of green over here. If we would make this value, let's say 2.1, we would see less, but then also we have like less anti-aliasing over here, and that's something we don't want to see. Let's keep it to a value of 3. So how can you remove something like that without destroying what we see actually over here? Well, perhaps we have like some small changes over here. Well, the thing that we can do is we can use some kind of a filter. And the filter that we're gonna use is the median. I can also check the, let me check this one. No, this is not what I need. Laptation. So in order to resolve this edge problem over here, we're gonna use a filter. And the filter that we're gonna use is over here, the median. Now, what a median is doing, if you look, for example, to median and mode and mean, these are all kinds of different ways how to create an average. The mean is like just averaging up all the things. So if you have like 5 values, you're gonna add all those 5 values together, divide it by 5, and then you get like the average value. So mean is the average. Now the median is taking the middle value, and so what this means is that we have a range that we're going to select pixels around here, and with this median it's going to count all these values that we see around that pixel, and it's going to see which is the middle value. And because we have like a lot of white around over here, like let's say we have 6 white, 6 white over here, the numbers counted up is going to fall likely in the middle. Now really to see what's going on, let me just drag it over here, and this will make it easier to see what I mean. Where is its mean? I want to make it smaller like this. Okay. So what it's doing is it's just taking up all these numbers, and those could be the values which are around the pixel. And then because we have a lot of white, we're gonna have like white, 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 gray, black, etc. Now this median is then going to take white as a value, and so it's always going to take like the average color. And this works really well in images because it's not going to destroy what you see over here. It's only going to destroy the very, very thin lines or the isolated points. It's ideal to remove noise from an image. So if you take median over here, you see it's immediately removed. Everything is just gone like that in a snap. You see just very small issues around the corners, which is going to destroy. But perhaps we can solve this just a little bit by lowering this value. If we set this 1.5, I still think it's gonna work, and it does, and it makes this corner just a little bit smaller. So this is a way how you can also clean these kind of values. Alright, now suppose we don't have like this proper mask, like in a lot of cases we do. You're gonna see that if we're going to copy exactly this system, it's not going to be that easy. So you will always have to be creative how to solve problems such as these. Up. Like this. Okay. So we see in this version we have this and we have this. So I'm going to combine both of these. But as you can see, right here my bottle is just a little bit darker, and also I've been rendering it with grain, so you can see over here while I'm moving over with my cursor, you see the values are just moving around. over here as well, moving around. It's because of the noise that we have in here. So let's see what we have. We have like this bottle over here, which is not perfectly what we need as much. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just add a multiplier. And so I can increase the color value. As you can see, you can increase it just a little bit. So I'm going to increase it, let's say, to 1.12. And then we have like all our values just above 1. And then I'm going to use a clamp value, so to make sure that everything is going to stay nicely within that value. So now we have like a column value, as you can see over here. Okay, so this is a little bit the whole thing for masking. I'm going to use this one for now because this is the cleanest, so I'm just going to remove everything that we have right over here. Okay, just make sure that you clean your graph at all times. So now the next step is going to be our specular. So let's go in again and just load our specular. Our specular, we're going to put it over here. Press R to read it. Specular shading, open it, and let's check what we have over here. We see it's very dark. Again, make sure always to set the space to linear. So right here we're going to use two methods. We're going to use a color curve to get something like this, and we're going to use also color correction to get something like this. Two methods. Alright, so for the first one I'm going to use a color lookup. Yeah, depends on the type of program you're using. Over here it's called color lookup, but basically it's the same as the color curves that you see in Photoshop. So making sure that you view them, you have them right over here, and as you can see, if you take one of those points, you can just move them and you see real time the adjustment of the colors right over here. So what you can do as well is you can add, for example, an extra key. Now be aware that if you're adding keys, you always will add keys on the active curve. So if you want to add a key over here on the green key, you have to first press or make sure this one is selected and not the other ones. Make sure you have the green key selected, and then by pressing Ctrl Alt left mouse button you can create a key just like that. So that's pretty obvious. Now something else which is important, we want to have like a white spot, a white bright spot over here. Let's set it back to the center. Now in order to find this white spot, you have to look at what kind of values that you have, and you see those lines moving over here. These lines are moving all the way up over here, and while moving over these colors you can actually see how far you need to get in order to have like this pure white value. So this gives you some kind of a clue to where we have to place it. Let's say a 5.8 value, something like that. So if you're going to select all of them, I'm going to select all these values and I'm going to set the Y value to 0.58. Up, sorry, wrong one, and it doesn't seem to work for all at the same time. Up, X1 0.58, and yeah, let's do that for the other ones as well. 0.58, 0.58. So now we have our whiteness over here. Just moving this one a little bit to the side and adjusting it a little bit so that we get exactly what we need. So to something like this, for example. And now we can continue to do that for the rest as well. So the blue value, we're gonna set it also over here to straight, making sure that we don't have the green anymore selected, that we have like only the red now. And so now if we again Control Alt, we can add a key, we can make sure that we have our red value a little bit less even. So we're gonna play around and make sure that we have like exactly those colors that we need. It's just subtle tweaking and fine-tuning, and the blue is something we can keep more or less as it is. So perhaps for the red, can also make it such as this value, make it go away a little bit more, turn it and tweak it until you get something decent like this. So that's one method. Another method would be using the color correction. Color correct, and a color correct has like actually a few functions inside. So with the gain, which is some kind of a multiplier, let's add that over here. So you can multiply actually the value with gain. Gamma is bending the values from one direction to another, so it's like putting some kind of curvature to the whole image. And then contrast is just widening the values over here. And then saturation is also of course to do with color. So you can also change all of them using the straight values, or you can do that using colors. Over here we have an offset, and this is just adding or subtracting to the whole thing. It's just adding this color. So eventually one would make it like purely white. So now for the gain, let's see, what we're going to do is we're going to make a bit more contrast, and I'm going to lower our value over here to something like this. Value more or less like this, perhaps a bit more contrast again, like this, and perhaps we can gain the value minus 1.5. Minus 2 perhaps. So yeah, this working out more or less to what we need. And then we're going to create a second color correct. Color correct. And this one we're going to multiply with the color. Scanning that we have something more or less like this. It's kind of a greenish kind of glow on the whole thing. And then we can merge them by using a plus function. Now as you can see, it doesn't give you exactly the result that you would like or that you would prefer. So therefore again you have to use a clamp function over here, because with this color correct right in here we have like a lot of negative values, which you can see over here. We have like negatives everywhere. And of course when you add them together, the negative values are going to subtract all the rest. So when you clamp that, that problem is solved. Okay, so that's the first step for our specular. So let's continue now further with the next step. Okay, So here we're going to adjust the glass color. Now there are again two ways. We can use color correction, or we can use shift, which is something different. And the thing that we have over here, this transparency layer, is only going to show you the rays which have like the secondary bounces, so it doesn't show anything other than everything which is transparent on the face. So it doesn't show any diffuse values or anything like that. So let's see, we will need it over here as well. So we're gonna read it, and the transparency shading. Again, never forget, put it to linear. So we have something like this. So color correct, and you can start just, for example, using a different gain. So you get something like this. And these are all things that you can really start to tune, fine-tune, until you get exactly the type of vase color that you would like to have. And as you can see, it just updates real time, so this makes it very easy to work with. Another way of adjusting colors, like I said, is the hue shift. And since this is like a very saturated color, it's like orange, yellow, you can really do a hue rotation, so it's just scrolling through all the various, it's shifting actually colors from one side to another, so maintaining the relative shift towards each other. So you, like that, you can also create like fairly interesting face colors. Okay, now let's go for this one, what we have over here. I think this is most beautiful. I'll leave this to the side. And so what you can do now, just for having a little glance on what the effect is, we can combine them also with this merge and view the results. So now we have like this specularity on this face. And as we can see over here, I think this specular is way too hard. So I'm going to change this a little bit, perhaps by adding a little bit less contrast, something like this. And perhaps after clumping, I can add a little blurring. Let's see. This makes it a bit nicer, makes it just a bit more natural on the scene, so we don't have that extreme sharpness anymore. Okay, so let's continue with the next step. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to prepare the channels for creating a dust layer. And the dust layer is something we can derive from a normal map. So in this normal map we have like top, down, left, right, etc. So let's take our top down value over here. So let's move this just a little bit higher, because this is something that you can use virtually on any place to control certain parts, etc. So right over here, read, and note we're gonna read is the shaded normal. So again, set it to linear space. And what we have over here is in colors a vector representation of the whole space. Now since this is an 8-bit image, it doesn't give you a proper representation. Actually it goes from 0 to 1. Now if you want to have like a proper vector representations, you want to have vectors which are going from a positive 1 to a negative 1, for example, for the red color over here. But it will become a little bit more clear if we add a shuffle node to extract just one channel, so that you can see what's going on. So if we use shuffle, I'm gonna select the green channel, which we can see is the up vector. We see over here that objects which are lit from the side are just like an average gray, 50% gray, and over here it goes to black. So we want to have like, over here we want to have like pure blackness, and it's over here we want to have like a negative color. So again, I'm gonna use a color correct, and in this color correct, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to multiply the whole values over here by 2. So it's going to be very strong, and then I'm going to offset, so -1. So first, by multiplying by 2, the values of 1 become 2, the values of a half become 1, and the values of 0 stay 0. So now if I offset it with -1, the values of 0 are going to be -1, the values of 1 are becoming 0, and the values of 2 are becoming 1. So now we have like a proper orientation or color setting. So in fact you can do that immediately for all channels. Perhaps this is better because we have to pick some other channels as well later on. So just reverting it and then using a shuffle again. So now we have like our dust layer top down. So the up vector can be used for lots of things. Also for snow, I did it once in a project. We can do it for all kinds of things. But we want to isolate it to just one thing, to our bottle, which we see right over here. So in order to isolate it, first of all, what you're gonna do is to clamp the values that you see right over here, so that we don't have any negative values anymore. We just don't need them. And what we're gonna do then is we're gonna multiply. So you have two multiplies, one multiply math and one multiply merge. So I'm going to combine it over here and over here, and let's see what we're having. So we still see a little border over here, and let me just zoom in a little bit. Now we want to get rid of this, and we can do exactly the same as we did before, and it's something I used over here, but later on I removed it. So let's go right here, go to the filter and take a median filter again, and so we can do something like this, which is gently removing everything. Let's make the filter just a bit smaller. That makes it also a little bit faster. So now we have like this nice clean shape. Make sure to check everywhere and see that the rest is still okay. So I think this gives us a fairly good shape for a mask. Alright, so now the next step. So what we're gonna do is, right now we're gonna try to extract the reflection. Now here we have a little bit of a problem because we don't have like a source image for the reflection, and we still do want to get the reflection eventually. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take like the master layer over here, and we're going to extract our reflection. And so how are we going to do that? It's actually quite simple. We're just going to subtract all other values from it. So if we gonna go over here and gonna read in all the other files, and that is, in this case, we have like the final color, we have the specular shading, we have transparency, it's something we already have, the shader density, well, we can have a look at that, but I don't think it's the one that we need. the diffuse shader indirect and the diffuse shader. Okay, let's have a look at all the things that we have. Well, this is the shadows, and that's something I don't need for now. I could use it anyway later, but right now it's not necessary. Okay, so we have over here our source image. We have all the other ones, and as again, the thing that we need to do is to make sure for everything see to linear. We did have the specular already, so I don't have to use this one again. So let's see how far we get. So first thing that we want to do is we check this image, and so it's actually, like I said, very simple. The thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract all the layers. So we have our global illumination, which you can see over here, and that's the first thing that we're going to remove. So just press tab. Gonna make a merge node A, B, and what we're gonna do is not an over operator, but we're gonna do a minus operation. And so if we subtract the global illumination from the rest, we see something like this, just a normal scene without global illumination. Now we're gonna subtract the whole lighting from it. And so now we have like our glass object in our specularity. So that's the next step. Removing our glass, and now we have specularity and reflection left. And so what I'm doing is every time I copy paste, and when the node is selected, then it automatically connects to the next one. And so now the only thing that we have left is over here our reflection layer. So just one thing to do is actually to clamp the whole thing so that we don't have values which are negative, and that in the end we have like this nice looking image. So now we have like control with the multiplier over the reflection, and we can start adding more value, and we can even colorize our reflection so that it matches up a little bit what we're doing over here. So again, as you can see, you just have like real-time control over all those things that you're doing. And so if we would take that result and connect it up to the end, we now have our bottle also with reflection, color to reflection, tinted reflection, that is. We can make it even more so. Let's see whether I can make it more into this bluish kind of color, like this. This seems to be a little bit better. So you have, like I said, pure control. Okay, let's go on for the next step. Now it's about time to refine the elements. So what we're going to do is, for example, we now had like this very primitive dust kind of layer. So what we want to do is to make sure that we have something which looks like real dust. And the way how we can approach this is by, for example, first making sure that we have some kind of a texture that we can use. And secondly, that we're going to light it. So we're going to make sure that our dust is going to be lit with everything that we see over here. Oops, that's the wrong view. Let's go back over here. Okay, so for that I need to load in a new layer, so read, and the one that I'm going to use for that is over here the texture. Now if you're gonna look at the texture, what you see over here is that we have like this black and white texture applied over here, and that's something we're going to use in combination with all the rest. There's also another one that we need to read, and this is the over here illumination. And so here we see how the surface is being lit. So for a dust layer, the thing that we want to do is, first of all, we want to color this, make sure that we have something which can be used as a dust layer. And so for that I'm going to use like a full screen color. And to create this full screen color, I'm just going to use a ramp. It's actually quite simple the way how I'm going to use it. Normally a ramp is just a gradient over the whole screen, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my gradient down so I have like this full screen color. And so now I can multiply it. So I just have one color. And we're going to give it some kind of a dusty color. Not too brownish, something like this. And this is something we're going to use in combination with what we have over here. So if we use a multiply, you see that we have, like over here, the color shading, and also multiply it with the color. So now we can use a multiplier over here, for example, to set the intensity of the light. But this is not what I want to have. The thing which we want to control is actually how the fall off of the light is on this surface. Now, because this is dust reacts just a little bit differently. It's actually a bit more diffuse than what you see over here. Now, with this normal diffuse calculation, we have like this gradual fall off from the angle which is pointing directly at the light source towards the edge. And so we're going to bend that. So for that we're going to use a color correction node. And with this color correction, we're going to make sure that we change that globally, and we do this by using the gamma. So when using the gamma, as you can see, I'm not changing actually the brightest value over here. All what I'm doing is I'm bending on how the flow of the light is going to be. Just move it a little bit to the side and we get something like this. Now this is like a completely dust covered thing, so this is also something we want to limit. We want to make sure that we have like our dust being applied only on one part. Now we have this over here, so that's what we're going to use, and we have our glass. So let's do like this very rough combination, because what I'm going to do now is not correct. You will see that later on how we're going to adjust this. So tap merge, and what we're going to do in fact is we're going to throw this image over that image. So for now what we're seeing over here is just this really rough scene. Everything is just thrown over. So what we need to do as well is we need to mask that from outside. So what we can do is we can take over here, which is on the right side, this third connection, and this is our mask. So what we can do is we can go over here, we can use this as a masking. So by double clicking we can see, okay, we have a mask over here. Which channel are we going to use? Right now it's just set to RGB alpha. And this is something we're going to change. We're going to change it to the red channel of the alpha. So this gives us already a little bit of a mix that we see over here on the class. And now right here you can start to use a multiply to make sure that the values are going to be strong enough. So the stronger you put it, the more dust is going to settle. And so as for now you can see that all the dust is settling nicely over here on the surface. So I'm going to keep it just a little bit gentle, something like this. So not like a pure covering of dust. Okay, but now it's still this very dull looking dust. So we need to add some more detail to it, and that's something we're going to do right over here. And perhaps I'm going to move this a little bit aside, and these elements I'm going to move to the side as well, because I'm going to use over here our texture for that. So again, make it linear. And I'm not sure whether I did it over here. Let's make that linear as well. It probably gives us already a very different kind of look. So right now we see everything is nicely lit from the dust. This also means that with this color correction I can adjust the gamma just a little bit back. Something like this. That will be better. Okay, so let's see how we can combine this with what we have over here and with this texture. So first thing that we're going to do is just very simple. We're going to do a merge, and we're going to multiply merge it. So the result that we're getting is something like this. And as you can see, we clearly see, for example, the handprints right over here, and those handprints, they've taken the dust away in this case. It's not exactly what I had in mind, because we see now over here, we see that the dust is being taken away, but not in a way that I like it to be. So this is something we're going to fine-tune. First of all, I want to make sure that everywhere where I placed the hands, the dust is going to settle more, because it's a little bit greasy, so the dust can attach easier. So that's the first step. We're going to invert what we have over here, and so now we see our dust being applied, especially in those parts. But apart from that, I still want to have like more dust being settled over here. So what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to use a color correction over here. Color correct. Color correct. And let's place it in here. And let's see how we can adjust it. So we can either offset the whole thing, making it just a little bit brighter all the time, or we can play with the gamma, and it's perhaps a better idea, because the gamma is not going to push our values over white. It's going to just bend the colors more to the other side. So let's have a look over here, and this looks just a bit nicer. Let's see over here. So now we have like the subtleties and still have like a full dust cover right over here. So this looks pretty okay. Now the only thing that I still want to control separately is the specularity, because the specularity right now is being covered too much. Hang on for that. So what we're going to do first is we're going to disconnect over here our specularity. So create a new merge node. As you can see, these are our two specular layers that we have, and these two we're going to merging with a plus. So we got them separately, we have now separate control over them, so I can just disconnect them right over here. So let's see if this is correct for our reflection and the rest of the class. So that seems to be okay for me. Now there are some other things that we can add as well, is that dust tends to settle, it has a certain thickness. So what we want to have is, we want to see less transparency on the sides and just the transparency like we have it over here. So this is also something we want to get, and for that I'm going to add again a new shuffle. I'm not going to take it from here. Oops, like this. So this shuffle is going to be not the up-down version, but the front version, which is this one. And we're going to invert it. So it's something like this. So we have like this side fall off. Now I'm using a little bit of a trick over here, because it just accidentally happened that our camera is more or less aimed towards the world Z direction, so it works more or less, but actually what you need is the incidence angle. As you can see, it's just a little bit offset over here. We have like more on this side, but that will do. It's good enough for now. And so we're going to use it in combination with what we see over here. So let's see with this. And so perhaps what we can do is we can just add it over here, merge, and we're going to use a plus merge. Let's see. So as you can see, now we have like more control to the sides. Now perhaps the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to reorganize these things also a little bit, because this is going to be useful for other things as well. But let's stay with this one for now. Again, make sure that you are going to clamp it, because over here we have like overshoot values. Tap clamp, and let's use this one instead. So if you're gonna look at the end result right now, we see we have like dust settled over here and then a little bit of transparency to the side. Now we're going to still fine-tune this, but for now we're gonna keep it as it is. Let's move these elements more to the side, and what we're gonna do is, especially this part, we're gonna move over here, and let's say this part we're gonna move to this side, because we're gonna use it in different parts. Well, this is perhaps the easiest. Most clear to read. Okay, so this one we're still going to refine a bit, and again we're going to use a color correction. Color correct. And a few things that we want to control is over here the fall off. We want to make it more to the angle. So we're going to lower what we see over here, and so that it's more settling to the sides. So now we have like our dust settled nicely on the side, but still we see transparency over here, and we can really start to adjust this again manually, so we see a little bit the result of that coming. Okay, so this is a nicely tuned version of the glass. Okay, so now the specularity, we're going to do exactly the same thing. Well, I'm going to move this one again a little bit further. I'm going to move it to this side, because we're going to use our texture in combination with our speculars, and we're going to approach it just a little bit differently. So we have like this soft specular and we have like this hard specular. Now this soft or this hard specular, we're going to break it up a little bit by using our texture, but we're not going to invert our texture in this case. We want to make sure that everything is going to shine through exactly on those spots. So I'm going to do a merge multiply, over here, and so what we see is we have our specularity over here a little bit broken away. Now what we see as well is that over here the rest of our specular is being influenced, is being colored. That's something we don't want to have. So we need to have our mask right here as well. And so we're going to multiply this one together with our mask, so that we're only affecting the glass right now. So let's check this one. Okay, now we have only this texturing, and now we see only the effect happening over here. The problem though is that we don't have like any specularity left for the rest, so perhaps that's not a good idea either. What we could do, however, is to recombine it afterwards. So we're just going to leave it for now, because this is the specularity that we're going to use in any case for what we have right here. So again, I'm going to use a color correct in order to get exactly what we need. So I'm going to gain, because I want to have like this very sharp specularity over here, and that's what I'm doing by making like a strong contrast. Let's make some more contrast, and so that we can clearly see right over here what's going to happen. So by adding this contrast, we have like better specularity. We see more the effect of what we're doing over here. So let's try to get something like this. So if we merge it, we see we have our nicely broken specular, which is something we still have to fine-tune afterwards. Okay, now we're not going to merge it right over here. We're going to merge it right after we have added the dust. So merge, and what we're going to do right here is like this, wrong one, like that. We're going to add it at the end source. And so now we see our glass has like this nice texture on it, but we still have like too much of the other specular. As you can see, it's totally not affected at all by that texture. So we're going to do it right here as well. Also a merge. And this is going to be a multiply merge. And so as you can see, we have now the ability to control our big specularity as well. And so this is also something we're going to control using color correction. And for that we're going to, let's see, we're going to lower the gamma a bit and perhaps lower the gain. So we do see a little bit of the specularity, but we don't see it completely shining through. Let's change over here the color correction again, so that we reduce our gain a bit to something like this. And so now we see how our dust is really properly settling onto the surface. Let's see, this is more of the whole thing. Gonna make sure that the specularity is just shining through a little bit, not completely, just slightly. Something like this. So now we have specularity all over the place. Still passing through the dust a little bit. Okay, so yeah, we went a little bit further than what I've shown over here, so we added this part as well. Now we can control over here the global illumination, etc. But before I'm going to do that, I'm going to continue with some other parts as well, which is reflection. Because if you're going to check the reflection, we see we don't have any fall off over here as well, and so we need a little bit of fall off for the reflection as well. So this is this thing that we can use for that. Again, we're going to use a new color correct. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that the front facing reflection is less than the side reflection. Again, a multiply merge. And we're going to connect it over here with this color correct. So let's see the result over here. And now we see that we have like this very dark control. So first of all, we're going to change the gamma so that we have a little bit less in the front and more to the side, and we're going to offset it so that we're sure that we still have front reflection but also some side reflection. And I'm going to make sure we have some gain. So we see less reflection over here, a lot of reflection on the sides. So perhaps make it even stronger, like this. Okay, so let's see what that result is going to look like. So now we have like this good, strong side reflection for everything. So I think our vase is nicely tuned right now. Now perhaps you might say that we want to have like less dust settled on the top over here. Now we can still tweak that as well. The way how we're going to do that is by doing the following. We have over here our mask, if you look over here, and so what I want to do is we're going to lessen what we just have right over there. So for that I'm going to create a ramp texture again. Let's have a look. And I'm going to move these controls a little bit higher to this spot over here. I'm gonna put it in the gradients itself, something like this. And I'll probably invert it the other way around. So something like this. That's going to be better. And we're going to replace it so that we see purely and alone the ramp. And again, we're going to multiply the whole thing with it. So if we look at this result, you see we've weakened what we see over here. So now you can really control this, making it even weaker. Something like this. So there are all kinds of controls that you can do. You can also add, like, again, a color correction, so that we can fine-tune also the fall off over here. And let's do it like this. So I can just move this up a little bit, and that we have like more. No, the gain is for the total thing, so that we have something more like this. And now if you see the end result, we see we have like just a little bit less dust completely on the top, so you can really nicely tune the whole thing. Now over here we still need to fix what we have right over here. So what we're going to do as well is we're going to create, or we're going to use a mask for our specularity over here. So we have like this one, and we're going to mask it again with this multiply. It's always the same thing, so masking it brings us up to this spot again. And so now we have like only the vase. So yeah, the thing that you can do is you can either create like a total separate control for the specularity for the cellos over here, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to do just like a quick merge for this color correction and this color correction. And set it to plus. And I'm going to create also another mask. Like what you usually would do is you would create like a special mask only for the chalice, which is not something I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is just I'm going to connect it over here with this end result. I'm gonna take the inverted version, or perhaps, yeah, I can do it, I can make like a new shuffle, doesn't matter. Let's see what we have. We have this face with this one. Well, we can combine both of them. Merge, shuffle this, shuffle that. Let's see if we plus it, if we can get a good result from that. Yes, and it does give us a good result. Tap, invert, and so we have like only our vase over here. And so we're going to connect it right over there. So now this is our other mask. Two specularities. And so we can now multiply that end result again. multiplying, I'm sorry, adding that result again, and we have both of these. So if you connect this one, we now see our two speculars of the elements. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to create all the other elements. So this one and this one we're going to bring together. So here merge, which is going to be an addition again, a plus. So we take what we have right over here, and on top of that we're going to add our global illumination. So this looks a little bit like this. So now we can control each one of them. Multiply math, so we can color the lighting over here. I'm gonna make this like this softer, more bluish tone, and the global illumination, therefore we have to change as well. And here you can see it's quite handy. You can change quickly the intensity of the global illumination. You can do whatever you want. So we're going to make this one also just a bit different. Gonna make it a little bit brighter, as it should be, but we're also going to tint it in this bluish color. So you can really take your time to nicely tune it so we get exactly that color that you need. And so that result is again something we're going to add, and we can add it right over here. And so now we have our vase with some nice textures and everything inside, combined with all the rest. And so perhaps one thing that we can do is we can add a sharpen filter. Just to make the image a little bit more alive. I'm not going to make the size that big. I'm going to set the size to 1 and going to set a higher value. That's perhaps a little bit too much. Let's set it to a value of 6. And so now you have like this really crisp, sharp, strong lines. Just putting a little bit more sharpness to the whole. So this in fact is concluding the lecture on doing lighting purely in post, purely in compositing. And as you can see, this gives you also a very strong control. Also, the real advantage is that we didn't waste any time anymore into really tuning, getting the quality better. Because with good global illumination and everything, you would have easily wasted already an hour just rendering out one or a few images like that. And so now we had like hundreds of opportunities to really fine-tune, change, adjust all the things, and really have a good idea of what the end result is going to be. And we were even able to add like extra elements such as dust covering and things like that. Okay, this concludes this lesson. Up to the next.